Hi folks, Judy Martin here, and you're watching Western Bass TV.
I'm Ken Castateri.
And I'm Bobby Barrick.
And you're watching Western Bass TV.
This guy up here on the demo tank and I have been friends for way too long.
That's just too long.
Way too long. Jim is for a long time was a full-time guide and also runs several wineries up in Sonoma and Napa County, Lake County. Jim's a great fisherman. He does an awful lot of guiding over on Lake Berryessa and on Clear Lake. I get asked all the time who I recommend as a guide up on Clear Lake. The last thing I have the patience to do is guide, but this guy does a lot of it. He is my absolute first choice. I always send anybody to Jim when I can. But his really, I think one of his favorite lakes to fish is Berryessa. And the sooner they drain that place and turn it into an ATV course, the happier I'm going to be. I never have to fish it again.
Not me.
You know. But Jim guides on Berryessa and Clear Lake an awful lot, but he's here to talk today about fishing on Lake Berryessa and a little bit about some reaction bait fishing. You guys are going to see some new products that maybe you haven't seen yet that you're going to need in your tackle box. Please welcome my buddy, Mr. Jim Munk.
How's everybody doing this afternoon? So how many people know where Berryessa is? A lot of people? Pretty close, huh? And it's a lake that isn't fished a lot. There's a lot of tournaments on it, but not a lot of recreation fishermen. Except for one. I got some good friends over here, and she knows all about catching big fish on Berryessa. Anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over the lake a little bit with you. How I locate fish, guide fish, help my clients learn how to catch black bass and smallies. A few techniques, they're basic, it's easy. Berryessa, you know, it's within 2 hours of the Bay Area. So it's close to get to. And not a lot of people go to it, except for ski boats and all that. But you know, the lake's so big and so many different places you can go, the boats don't really bother you. Berryessa is about 165 miles of shoreline. And there's about a third of it that you can walk. You don't even need a boat. You can just get out on the bank, pull up the pull out, walk down, and you can fish. Nice thing, another thing is, you don't have to fish for bass. There's bluegill in there, there's catfish, and there's trout. They stock trout almost, if not every week, every other week. So it's a good fishery, and it's been coming on. Last week there was a tournament there, 11.5 pounder was big fish. When I started growing up on it, I fished all my life, probably last 30 years, pretty heavy. If you had, you know, a 3 pounder, that was big. You'd go home and tell your mom and dad you caught a 3 pounder, and then it was, you know, put it in the paper. Now you're out there, and if you don't fish, go out and have a tournament and you don't have a 5 pounder, chances are you're not even going to have a big fish check. I mean, that's how it is. Tournaments first started there, it was, you know, 12 pounds would get you a check every time, or win it almost every time. I've been over there and got a check or won with 6 pounds. Now you go over there and it's 15 to 20 pounds, or you're not going to be in the top 5. So it's a good fishery. It's close to the Bay Area. It's easy to fish. And not a lot of competition. So, you know, if you haven't found that and you're going to Folsom or other places, you know, check out Berryessa. It's close. A few things how I do. The lake fishes like 2 different lakes. You got a deep part of the lake, which is down around Markley towards the Sacramento, where it drains out through Pewter Creek. And as you come up through the Narrows by Spanish Flat and all that, it starts to flatten out up around the Big Island. So you can have, you know, in the wintertime you can be down the deeper water. You don't have to worry about it. You can go down and spoon or whatever, but as the water starts warming up, the bass start coming on, especially this year because it's not cold. So they didn't go as deep as they would. I've been down there in January and February fishing 60 feet of water. This year, you know, everything they're catching them, and the big fish last week come on a crankbait. So when I'm down there pre-fishing or getting ready for clients or whatever, I'll start down by the dam. I'll start with crankbaits, something that I can cover a lot of water with. Berryessa, every lake's got its favorite color. The bass seem to like it. The fish seem to bite on certain colors. Berryessa is a red lake for me. Anything that has a little red in it. So I start out down by the dam and I'll fish in the mornings. This time of the year, I'll start off on the points by Markley and anywhere down there, and I'll just start fishing points. I'll pull up on a point, straight up on it, so I can fish into the cove and down the side of the bank with the crankbait. I'll start off with the one that goes 0 to 5 to 7 feet. And I'll fish that. I'll fish probably 15, 20 points to see if the fish are there. If I don't get bit, I don't go and change lures or colors. Maybe they're not up that deep. In my tackle box, I'll have the same color bait, but it's going to go 5 to maybe 15 feet. And I'll turn around and I'll go right back over those same points, and do the same thing I just did to see if maybe they're a little different. A lot of people make mistakes. They'll fish one crankbait going along, fish points and don't get bit, and it's only going down 5 or 6 feet. What they do, they say, well, they must not be there. So they'll move around, and instead of trying a little deeper with the same crankbait, they'll put on a deeper crankbait, but they won't stay with the same color. They'll put on something altogether different. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in fishing, just fishing alone, you have to have confidence in what you're doing. Chances are you haven't been out there for a week, so you're going to be throwing baits that you've always caught fish on. You're going to be going to areas that you've always caught a fish on. So what you want to do, you want to put on your confidence bait, whether it's red, blue, pink, whatever. Fish it, but fish it in different depths until you see if you can get bit. If you're seeing on your fish finder or whatever, if you're in a boat and there's fish there, fish at different depths, and if it doesn't work, maybe then go to your secondary color. But don't go down the bank fishing 5 feet of water with one color, and they're not there after a half hour, and then go and switch and put on a totally different bait and go deeper. Try to stay with the same color and go a little deeper. So when you go to the tackle store, it simplifies things. What I like is red. Your confidence color might be shad color, or it might be a hot pink. Fish with what you have confidence in. Don't switch around, because your time's limited. You can't be on the water as much as we can. So your time is real limited when you're out there. So fish what you have confidence in. And this is just Berryessa, I know over the years, happens to be a red lake. So I fish this. So I fish a lot of different, I'll fish it fast, keep it up, fish a lot of points. If it's not working, maybe I need to put it on, a little deeper and get down. So I'm down on the bottom and just slowly work it. Maybe they don't want it that fast in the morning. Typically what happens is a little cooler in the morning, they're a little sleepy and all that, so they want it slower. As the day warms up, you can fish a little faster. So you fish a bunch of points, and you might catch 1 or 2 little ones. You go back through it again with maybe a different one. You don't get bit. I thought I got bit there. I wasn't watching my bait, and the lure went funny. You don't catch anything deeper, so they're in that range, but you lost the bite. Maybe you need to switch now. Maybe they want something a little slower presentation. So what I do, I always got something else I can stall with. I'll pull out a rip bait, something like that I can slow down. They're only in 5 feet of water. I'll put on a shallower water bait. I'll go back over those same points, and I'll slow it down, where I can just let it sit. See if there's any more reaction fish. A lot of my bites come just like that, sitting it on slack line. A lot of people get out there and you want to keep going fast. If they're really after it, that's fine. The chances are those bigger ones didn't get big because they chased that bait around. They got big because they waited for that bait. Pull it out, slow it down, let it sit. Let it sit. Somewhere along the line, you're going to catch those fish, especially this time of the year. They're going to be between 10 and 15 feet. You can always catch them deeper and shallower, but the most of them are going to be in there. What I'm looking for also this time of the year is you're getting ready for a full moon's coming up. When the water temperature on that lake, because you got smallies, largemouth, and spotted bass, the smallmouth and spotted bass are going to spawn between 50, 55 degrees, and they're going to be done. So what's happening, the lake right now is sitting about 48 degrees. All those fish are sitting on points or just inside the points right now, waiting for that moon. When that moon comes up, right after the full moon, it's that temperature between 50 to 55 degrees. That's when the big smallies and spots are going to come up. So that's what you want to concentrate on first. And you're always down in the deeper water, fishing the deeper points. You start off on points like this week and you find them on 3 or 4 points. You keep working points, but they're back on those 3 or 4 points. So you look at it and say, well, they were 8 feet of water on that point. Look at that point. That point might have gravel on it, it might only have mud on it, or it might have one tree somewhere on it. If they're on gravel, well then just go around and hit those gravel points. See if you can do this pattern the same thing. If it's mud, sort of a clay bank where the crawdads are, and you haven't been getting on gravel, and every time you come up and get bit, it's on mud, well that tells you something. They're on mud. They're on a dirt. Smallies, spots, usually are going to spawn where it's more of the chunk rock, not the pea gravel, the bigger rocks, with the mud next to it. The smallie, or the largemouth, will get in. They're going to be more in the backs of the cove, where it turns into be more of the mud, the pea gravel. So this week I'm on the points and I find them. I got a guide trip coming up and they're all on the front of the points. I said, okay, next week I got to have these people on fish. They come all this way to catch them. I go to the first 4 points. I can't get bit where those fish are. What do you think happened? The fish just thinned up and moved to the other end of the bank. They've started in the cove. They've moved in to get ready to spawn. So I can actually go up, fish this week, and they're on the points. Next week, I'll find them halfway back in. Following week, well, they're not there. They keep moving back in. The smallies will move back in, find their sheltered area where they can spawn. And they'll spawn anywhere. I had them in 20 feet of water on rocks. But mainly that it's 12 to 15 feet. They don't have to come all the way up. So now you got the smallies back halfway in the coves. Don't forget the point. Because what's happening, the smallies are back there spawning in that 55 degree water, 50, 55 degree water. The largemouth are out there on the points ready to move in. So once they're back there stable and you're having fun, always when you're back there fishing, move out to the front. You catch them back there, turn around, put your buoy, and come back out to the front. Because chances are you're going to catch the bigger ones and they're going to be largemouth in the front. Once it gets warm and the main lake starts getting up to 55, what happens with Berryessa, you got the deep water down by the narrows. Now the second part of the lake turns on, which everybody's probably heard of, the vineyards, Pewter Creek and all that. You can start moving up and fishing that stuff. And you do the same way. You throw reactions. Up there you don't have to really worry about the 20, 25 feet of water because you're fishing big flats. There's flats up there that could be 5 feet of water and you could be a mile off the shoreline. So there's a lot more water to cover. So you want to be throwing more of the reaction to see if you can get bit. Once you find them, they might be out there just on the flat mud, but what they're going to key on is depth. See how those fish get interested when it sits for a while? That's what you want. You want the bigger ones to wait until they'll wait until they think it's dead so they don't have to burn that energy. So by the time you come, this is all January to February, middle of February, I'm fishing, say, Big Island to the dam. That's your deeper water. Now you have that full moon, that water comes up. It's about 55, 60 degrees now. Woo. See, even we can get all goofed up here. What happens, that water starts warming up. Now I'll start patterning the largemouth. The largemouth will be in the narrows, Pewter Creek, up at the north end, as far as you can get, because that water's warming up where the largemouth want to move up. You do the same thing we did down the narrows, but those points are a lot bigger. They're a lot bigger flats. So you get him active, and you'll come after it. But if I go through and rip this thing fast, they won't even look at it. They'll just let it go by. But you stop it and make them look, they'll come back after it. So now I'm up on the north end of the lake, I'm fishing big flats. You pattern them the same way, but those points, instead of being close to the bank, you might be a half a mile off the shoreline. They like this color. So you fish that, You get them, oh man. You get them patterned on points, you fish your reaction, you got them figured out where they are. So the next 3 weeks, when you come back out, you only got a weekend to fish. You say they're up at the north end, they're on points, they're on these flats. You go to the narrows, down that side, they're back in the coves. So you got 2 areas you can go. When they start spawning, they'll quit chasing bait. So what we want to do then is slow the presentation down because they're on bed. And this is a new exciting bait by River to Sea. It's called a standing yabby. It's a crawdad, but the way it's made, it stands up in the water, the way the hook is. These crawdads, after it warms up, these crawdads will start coming out and getting around beds and stuff. And the fish don't like any predators around the beds. So instead of fishing fast, you might as well get out a sandwich and just start fishing slow. Eat your sandwich, pull it, count to 10 or 15, pull it, let it sit. The main thing you want to do with any crawdad, whether it's a jig or like this standing yabby is, you fish them slow. If you think you're fishing slow, just standing here, try again, slow down. A lot of times you can set your rod down, go to the back of the boat, you pick it up, the fish is there. Well, why'd that happen? It's because you let it sit. The last thing a crawdad does is stop, comes up, backs up, you protect the position, and then he gets ate. Well, if you're jerking it along fast, those fish, the bigger fish, aren't going to take it. Pull it through the structure and let it fall straight down. The key here is let the fish come to the bait. Sometimes this drives everybody nuts because you can't fish fast. You got to slow way down. Let it sit. Count to 5 or 6. Let it sit. And you can't see them, but they'll get interested and just pull it. And if it's by a bed, it won't take very long and they will eat it. You come up to structure, instead of getting hung up and just pull it out of the water, if you get hung up in structure or something on the bottom, what you should do is you pull it up, it comes loose, let it fall right back down next to it. That's where the bigger fish are. They're going to be hiding in those nooks and crannies. And that's what you're trying to do with the bottom bouncing baits. Let it sit. Lift. See? The longer you let it sit, they think that's prey, and there it is. And this is probably the most realistic live action bait there is out there in a crawdad. Just the way it sits. If you see a crawdad in the water and you spook it, they always put the tines up and looking at you. Well, this is exactly what this thing's imitating. The key with this thing is to throw it slow. They might swim by and look at it for a minute and come back and but pretty quick it'll get to them and they won't be able to handle it. Drop it around structure, let it fall. You should probably be throwing these. I throw these on a heavy. I like 7-foot rods. You can get to it. It's a quick action rod. So it loads up quick. It's long. Shorter rods, you got to give it more to it. The longer rods out there, you have more leverage on it. I throw almost all my jigs and this type of baits round cover. It's 12-pound to 15-pound Usuri. The other thing is I throw a high-speed reel. This is an AC, a Quantum AC PT reel, but it's a 6-2. It's fast. Reason being, if you got a little slack line and he eats it and you want to reel, this thing, every crank's going to take 28 inches of line out and you're going to beat to him quick so you can get the hook into him. But the whole thing is when you're using bottom bouncing baits, you already know the fish are down there because they're spawning. They're down there eating crawdads. They're spawning. They're protecting their beds. So you want to be down there where they are. If you get going too fast, let it sit. See, he wants it, but he's been already hooked probably once or twice. You want them to come to you. You want to make it as realistic as you can. Let it fall. That's one technique for bed fishing or springtime fishing. The other technique to catch this big fish that's fun for everybody, and everybody's heard about it, is drop shotting. You can cover a lot of water, not get hung up a lot. What I do with the drop shot rig, how I rig it, is I take a Spiro barrel swivel. It's like a number 8 barrel swivel. You probably can't even see it down there. I can hardly see it when I tie it. I tie it up on the top. I put my leader however long I want it. But what that does is when this thing's down there spinning around, you're not getting line twist on your line. Line twist is only right there. So if you happen to hook your bait wrong and it's got the line twist in it, it's coming out right at the barrel swivel. What else that does is I got little leader carrier. It's about that long. I can put like 12 or 13, 24 leaders on it. I tie up a bunch of leaders with my hooks already on it, and it's in my boat. So my clients break off or I'm in a tournament, I throw 8 pound on top, throw 6 pound underneath. 90% of my stuff is 8 pound on the line, but my 6 pound leader. It's going to break off at the swivel. So you pull out your leader, you just tie right on there, and you're ready to go. You're not tying on and everything again. You're not trying to tie the hook so it's straight up. The other thing I like doing that's worked out real well, a lot of people put their drop shots 18, 24, 36 inches up. I very seldom go more than a hand length away. That's even if I'm fishing shad. If the ball of shad is up high, I just don't drop it down all the way. I keep it up high. I like it down. I'll even go as much as on Clear Lake, if I'm flipping toolies, I'll even go to move that bait so it's 2 inches off the ground. I caught more fish, bigger fish, with the short leader than with the long leader. It's real easy. You just pitch out. You can fish it fast. Let it hit and just drag it. It's working as it goes. The thing you have to get in a habit of doing though, if you keep it tight and you hold it up, it's just going to pendulum down. What you want to do is keep your rod tip about 10 o'clock, and you don't need to be going like this most of the time, because just you holding on to it in the water is going to make that bait move by itself. So what I try to teach clients is just lift up and let it go slack a little bit. You're going to be able to feel the bite. You lift, let it go slack. Then you can wiggle it. No, it's action. And then you pull up, and most of the time you're going to feel a tick, or when you lift up, they're going to be swimming with it. And a lot of the clients, what they do, you can't tell them when you get bit. All you can say is you'll know. And I say that more times in the day than you'll ever know. If you'll lift up and you'll watch them, and I'll see them, and you'll lift up, and all of a sudden the bottom isn't there, but they don't know, and I'll look down and there's the bait swimming down the side of the boat. Say, I think you got a fish. No, I don't feel anything. Well, they're just swimming away. They took all that water in their mouth, they grabbed onto it, there's no tick because they had all the water, and then they're just swimming with it. All it takes is a couple of those to lift up, and the 3 or 4 pounder comes out of the water and they lose it. From then on, you don't have to tell them to set the hook anymore, because any little thing. So when you first start and you're feeling the bottom, and you'll know what it feels like. If you don't feel what you think you should be feeling, set. They like that little bait too. They're starting to get hungry now. But you won't. Like, I didn't feel that bite. All I felt was pressure going sideways. So you lift up. If you're going fast, they probably won't hit it. It goes back. Let the fish come to you. The bigger ones will not chase very far. So your whole thing is let the fish come to you. The bigger ones will bite. You'll have better action with the bigger ones. You get around structure, you let it stop, because you never know where that big one's going to be sitting in there. Almost had that one for dinner. So the whole key is, I feel in all my prints, say, keep the bait down lower to the bottom. If you go by and you see a ball of bait up high, we'll just reel up a little bit to it, because there might be shad around it or whatever. But most of those bigger ones, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be down there closer to the bottom, swimming around looking for hideaways. So that's a great lure, and you can fish it, you know, on all sorts of cover. You can actually take it, like this would be an open hook, the way I rig it where it'd be open. You can actually take the bait and fish it Texas rig, which I do on Clear Lake, and I pull it through the tulies and it won't get hung up. Because those fish will sit in the tulies themselves, and they'll be in there. Well, you got to get in there. The difference is, I'll put 15-pound test in a heavy stick with the bait caster on top, and I'll put 12-pound below so I can pull them out. I'll take that same technique, but I'm not going to throw 8-pound and 6-pound in tulies, not drop shot. So you have to think about how you're fishing, what the cover is, what you need to do to get the fish out of there. Berryessa, you know, most of my stuff, I don't throw my cranks and everything, it's 10-pound. This time of the year I'll throw 8-pound and 6. As you get into June, July, I'll actually drop the line down to 6, and sometimes I'll put 4 underneath. But when you're fishing this, most of the time you're on rock piles, you're on points, so when you do catch a fish, they're going to go to open water, and that's what the fun of it is. You're going to be out playing, letting them jump, letting them flop around. You're not in that heavy cover. You go to Clear Lake, they're in that cover, you got to pull them out. So that's one neat technique, and if anybody wants to see when we're done, I'll show you how I retie all that stuff so you have that small swivel. The other bait that I've won a lot of money doing, it's a wacky Senko. Rig it wacky style. Works around beds, it works after pre-spawn when they're done and you need a slower bait. All I do is I use a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook. I use different size Senkos. This is a sort of a small one. But instead of tearing up the Senko and putting the hook through it, I go down to the auto parts store and I got a case that's got a bunch of O-rings in it. All different size O-rings. So what I do is I put the O-ring, whatever fits snug, on the bait. Okay? Then I take the hook and put through the O-ring. Okay? So then, two things that happens. You're not tearing the bait apart every time you put the hook through it, because these things aren't cheap. Everybody's been at the store and they, you know, it's $5, $6 a pack. You want to make them last as long as you can. Put the O-ring in there, put the hook through the O-ring. It's still open hook, and you're not tearing the worm apart. The other thing this does is, if you're using a 1/0 hook, a smaller hook, so they suck it in a little deeper, you get a better hook set, and you put a Senko on there that takes up 3/4 of the hook bend, you don't have very much bite for the hook to penetrate the roof of the largemouth bass mouth. That's open. It's there. There's no rubber to get in the way. What I like to do is, it's sort of hard here, but I'll get in my boat and I like to fish as I'm going down the bank. I fish it fast. I'll throw this thing, and I'll throw it on 8. I'll throw it on 10. I got a saying, when you're in a tournament, you never really want to give up what you're saying. So we had a sort of, my call code is, I call this a figure 8. Reason being, I'm throwing 8-pound test, and that's just, I call it a figure 8. That's what it comes out to be. If I'm throwing 10-pound, it's my figure 10. So you throw it as far as you can, and the whole thing is, leave your bail open, slack line. Your boat's going that way, or you're walking down the bank, count to 10 or 15, you lift up. He's already got it. That's just, and that's how it happens. Now, if it happened like that every day, I'd be rich. He wants that thing so bad, I don't even have, that's a cut-off hook. There's no hook on there, and he's got it swallowed somehow. God, if I could do this every day. But see what happened? Perfect example right here. The fish took the bait, the hook's in his mouth. Look at that. Here's the bait up here. There's no rubber around the hook or anything. The hook is right there. There's nothing to block it. A lot of times what you do on some hooks, it'll all get clogged up and you won't get the hook in. He'll hang on to it for a little while. You won't get the hook penetrated and it'll come off. This slides up the hook. You got the whole hook exposed, so you get a better penetration. All right, I can go home now. So the whole thing is, and you do this, if you have a bigger one, you use a bigger O-ring. The whole key is you throw it out, and see if I can do this without catching. Throw it out as far as you can. That wasn't a very good one. Let it sink to 10, 15, and you'll get in that idea. You're going to it, and you reel up. Once you find it, just pull up a little bit. Don't pull as far as you can. Just get it to, so the worm, you feel that worm. You'll feel the weight of it. The worm collapses. You release it, and it opens up. You do that a couple times, that fish looks at it, and it flares back at him. Just their instinct is going to eat it. Favorite colors there, I know it's a red lake, but when I go and I start fishing these in springtime, green pumpkin and watermelon is a good color. I got another color that's out that's pretty close. It's an MM3. Rolo makes it, but I have a keeper company makes mine, and we call it the Jughead. It's almost the same thing. It's a fatter body. It's got a purple top, blue bloodline, and a brown bottom. If you look at crawdads in the summertime when they're molten, it's got all those colors. I started throwing that, so I'm trying to get somebody to make one that color. But for now, the two colors you should have in your box is pumpkin green and watermelon. You can take those anywhere. The other thing while we're doing this, everything I'm showing you here, because it's a natural lake, it's got a dam, you can take these patterns. If you're on Folsom all the time, you can take that pattern from Folsom and go to Berryessa. I've taken these patterns from Berryessa one day, went and fished a tournament on Shasta the next day, not pre-fishing, just went and done the same thing. So it works on other lakes. Once you get a confidence in the color and the way you like it rigged, stay with it. Go to your favorite spots. The other thing you can do if you start getting line twist, I'll show you that, but that little barrel swivel, I'll put a barrel swivel up here on this too. Much as you can use barrel swivels, it takes the pressure off your line from getting line twist. When you get a fish on and you start reeling down, you're reeling against the drag, let the fish fight. Use your rod tip. Every time you reel against the drag, you get line twist. There he is. The more line twist you get, the more you're going to have problems. How many times have you opened up a spool to go to cast and the thing just goes zinging down on the ground? Frustrating. You go put all this new line on, open up your bail, and there it is on the ground. Two ways to accomplish that, to stop that, with the spinning reel. When you put your line on, have your spool face up, so you're reading the label, make sure it comes off counterclockwise. Put it in the hot water or bottle, warm water, let it come off, put your hand here with the towel, put it on. Make sure it comes counterclockwise off. After about 15, 20 wraps, lower your rod down. I'll see if I can do it here. Lower it down. It should be limp. If you lower it down and it just goes, whoop, and gets all these knots, turn your spool over, reel 10 or 15 times, and the chances are it'll come out. Once you're done doing that, you're out in your garage, it's time to get some exercise. Don't hook anything on, but take off and walk down around the neighbor's bushes or lawn and everything, let your line out. Okay? Walk around something, a tree or something. As long as you don't have anything on the end of it, just leave it alone and just put your hand here and reel it back in with nothing on it. What that does, coming across the lawn of the trees, it'll take all that memory out of it if you had it on wrong. If you're out fishing and you start getting that, same thing. If you're in a boat, heck, it's time to have a cup of coffee or a sandwich or something. Cut your hook off. You need to retie every so often anyway. About every half hour, or if not sooner, you should be retying. What you do in the boat is pour a cup of coffee, get a sandwich, just let your line out. With nothing on it, it's in the water, reel it back in, stretches out, you can fish the rest of the day. When you're fishing and you throw it out, a lot of people just crank over. I get in the habit for bail springs and everything else, you throw out, leave your bail open, pull your rod tip up, shut your bail with your hand. You don't care where your fingers are. Shut it with your hand. You pull out, you pull up, it's always tight on your spool. Get in that habit. It does two things. It saves your bail spring, and chances of your knots aren't going to be in there. So that's just a couple ways to stop that. After you get, after spawning you're doing this, you can fish this bait wherever you go, just like I did. year round. Year round. You don't, it's just a great bait wherever you go. If you're getting heavy cover, what I like to do, I'll take that and I'll rig a Texas rig. I won't put it on the point. I'll rig it so it's halfway back, so when it sinks, see how this sinks in the middle and it sinks flat? You want to have your hook in the middle so it sinks flat, because that's the action that you want. A lot of times if the torpedo's down, it's going to fall way too fast and you won't get the right action and it'll go right by that fish. The whole thing is you want to make it slow so that fish comes after it. Pull it up. So that's the summer. It's easy. You can fish this thing anywhere. After you get summertime around trees and stuff, like especially at Berryessa, the water goes down, I'll go back to this, or I'll throw top water. Middle, you go after it. Everybody says top water or rip baits aren't going to work in the middle of the day. Some of my best top water fishing, biggest fish, have come when the water temperature, I've been in 90-degree water temperature on Berryessa on the east shoreline, 90-degree surface temp. I can't even stand up in the deck of my boat throwing top water, and those fish are coming right out, in 2 and 3 feet of water eating it. So in the summertime, if you have nothing to do, don't worry about, the evening and morning bite are always good, but don't shy away from top water or rip baits around trees and stuff in the middle of the day. Fish is slow, and they will eat it. If you have any other questions how I'm doing all this stuff, I'll be around here. I'll be in the quantum booth or over at the river sea, so you can see the baits I've been throwing and the knots I've been tying. Any other questions, you can ask me down here. Thank you.